Have you ever noticed something strange? You can spend an entire day feeling busy, answering messages, watching productivity videos, making plans, thinking about what you should do. And yet, when the day ends, the one thing that actually mattered remains untouched. The assignment is still unfinished. The business idea is still sitting in your notes app. The gym bag is still in the corner of your room. And somehow, despite doing almost nothing important, you're exhausted. Most people think procrastination is laziness, but what if that's completely wrong? What if procrastination isn't about avoiding work, but about avoiding a feeling? Because the truth is, procrastination has very little to do with time management. It's a psychological defense mechanism. And once you understand what your brain is actually doing, you'll never look at procrastination the same way again. Imagine a student sitting at a desk. The exam is 3 weeks away. The books are open, the notes are ready, everything needed to start is right there. But instead of studying, he suddenly feels the urge to clean his room, then organize his phone, then check a few notifications, then watch a video. Hours pass. The guilt starts growing, and now studying feels even harder than before. This situation sounds familiar because almost everyone has lived some version of it. The entrepreneur who keeps redesigning a logo instead of launching. The employee who keeps preparing instead of applying for a promotion. The person who spends months researching fitness plans without ever stepping into a gym. The strange part is this: these people often care deeply about their goals, sometimes more than anyone else. So why do they keep avoiding the things that matter most? The answer begins with a simple psychological truth. Human beings are not designed to seek success. They're designed to avoid discomfort. Your brain doesn't care about where you'll be in 5 years. It cares about how you feel right now. And that's where procrastination begins. Think about the moment before you start something important. Writing a report, studying for an exam, having a difficult conversation, applying for a new job. In that moment, uncomfortable emotions appear: uncertainty, self-doubt, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear that your effort won't be enough. Most people believe they're avoiding the task. They're not. They're avoiding those emotions. The task is just sitting there. The real problem is how the task makes them feel. And when your brain detects discomfort, it immediately looks for relief, not solutions. Relief. That's why scrolling social media feels irresistible. That's why watching one more video feels harmless. That's why suddenly everything else seems more important than the thing you plan to do. Your brain isn't making a long-term decision, it's making an emotional decision. It's choosing temporary comfort over temporary discomfort, and every time it does, it rewards itself. You feel a small sense of relief, a small escape, a tiny emotional reward. The problem is that reward trains the behavior. The more relief you get from avoiding something, the more your brain learns to avoid it again. Over time, procrastination becomes automatic, not because you're lazy, but because your brain has practiced escape. And here's where it gets dangerous. Most people think procrastination steals hours. It doesn't. It steals identities. At first, you postpone a task, then you postpone a goal, then you postpone a dream. Months pass, years pass, and eventually you become someone who no longer trusts their own promises. That's the hidden cost nobody talks about. Imagine telling yourself every Monday that you'll start, and every Friday realizing you didn't. Eventually, the problem isn't the unfinished work. The problem is the relationship you develop with yourself. You stop believing your own intentions. You stop trusting your own plans. You begin expecting yourself to quit before you've even started. And that quiet loss of self-trust affects everything. Confidence, relationships, opportunities, personal growth. Because confidence doesn't come from positive thinking. It comes from evidence. It comes from seeing yourself follow through. Now, here's something even more interesting. The people who procrastinate the most are often not the least ambitious. They're often the most ambitious. Perfectionists struggle with procrastination constantly because when your standards become unrealistically high, starting feels dangerous. If the result isn't perfect, what does that say about you? So instead of risking imperfection, you delay. You wait for the perfect mood, the perfect motivation, the perfect timing. But those moments rarely arrive, and life quietly moves forward without you. This is why some of the smartest people remain stuck. not because they lack ability, but because they keep treating action like a final exam instead of an experiment. They believe every decision must be perfect, every attempt must succeed, every outcome must prove something, and that's a heavy burden to carry. The real shift happens when you stop seeing action as a test and start seeing it as information. Instead of asking, "What if I fail?" ask, "What can I learn?" Instead of asking, "What if it isn't perfect?" ask, "What happens if I never start?" That small change completely transforms the emotional experience, because suddenly you're no longer trying to protect your identity. You're simply gathering information. You're becoming curious, and curiosity is far stronger than motivation. So what can you actually do when procrastination shows up? First, stop focusing on the entire task. Your brain gets overwhelmed by size. A report feels difficult. One sentence feels manageable. A workout feels exhausting. Putting on your shoes feels easy. Most people try to build momentum after they feel motivated. Psychologically, it works the opposite way. Action creates momentum. Momentum creates motivation, not the other way around. The second thing is surprisingly simple. Pay attention to the emotion you're avoiding. The next time you procrastinate, pause for a moment and ask yourself, what feeling am I trying not to experience right now? Maybe it's uncertainty, maybe it's boredom, maybe it's fear, maybe it's insecurity. Whatever it is, naming it reduces its power because you stop fighting an invisible enemy. You finally see what's actually happening, and once you see it, you gain a choice. The truth is, procrastination isn't a productivity problem. It's an emotional regulation problem. It's what happens when we consistently choose short-term relief over long-term growth. And every human being does it. The difference is that some people learn to recognize the pattern before it controls their lives. So the next time you catch yourself saying, "I'll do it later," pause. Ask yourself a different question. What exactly am I avoiding? Because chances are, it isn't the work. It's the feeling attached to the work. And that feeling, it usually lasts a few minutes. The consequences of avoiding it can last years. The life you want isn't hiding behind more motivation. It's hiding behind a few uncomfortable moments you've been running from. Face those moments, and you'll discover something surprising. The thing you feared was never as powerful as the avoidance itself.